Hello, my name is Alan Mayer. I'm a retired priest now assisting in the parish of St Mary Horsham. We've been in isolation for 3 weeks now for health and age reasons, and as I was due to give 3 talks in church on the first 3 evenings of Holy Week, which is now not possible, we are teaching ourselves to do many things online, including this. So here goes, and hope it works. In Monday's talk, we saw Jesus anointed with oil and revealed as the Messiah, the Christ, worthy of being worshipped. And in yesterday's, we saw Jesus remembered at the Last Supper. Tonight, we'll see him betrayed. The text once again is from St Mark's Gospel, and here is my own translation of Mark chapter 14, verses 26 to 52. And when they had sung a hymn, they went off to the Mount of Olives. And Jesus said to them, "Tonight you will all be caught in a trap because of me. Because it is written, I will smite the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. But after my resurrection, I will precede you into Galilee." But Peter said to him, "Even if they are all trapped, I won't be." And Jesus said to him, "Seriously, I'm telling you, that today, on this very night, before the cock crows twice, you will have denied me 3 times. But he really persisted and said, "Even if I had to die alongside you, there's no way I would deny you." And they all said the same. And they came to a place named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." And he took Peter and James and John with him, and he started being overwhelmed and deeply troubled. And he said to them, "My soul is bound in deadly sorrow. Stay here and keep awake." And he went forward a bit and fell on the ground, and he prayed that if possible the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Take this cup away from me. But not my wish, but yours." And he came back and found them asleep. And he said to Peter, "Simon, are you asleep? Couldn't you keep awake for even an hour? Keep awake and pray, so that you are not put to the test. Yes, the spirit is ready enough, but how weak is the flesh." And again he withdrew and prayed, speaking the same words. And when he returned, he found them asleep again, because their eyes were heavy. And they had no idea how to answer him. And he came back the 3rd time and said to them, "Carry on sleeping and taking your rest enough. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is being delivered into the hands of sinners. Get up, let's go. See, the one who is handing me over is coming right now." And right away, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, came up, and with him a great crowd from the chief priests and scribes and elders, armed with swords and cudgels. Now the one who was handing him over had given a sign to them. He said, "The one I kiss is him. Arrest him and take him into custody." And when he arrived, he came up to him straight away and said, "Rabbi, Rabbi," and gave him a big kiss. And they grabbed him and arrested him. But one of those standing there drew a sword, attacked the servant of the high priest, and took off his ear. And Jesus answered them like this, "Did you have to come out with swords and cudgels to arrest me like some robber? I was with you in the temple every day teaching, and you didn't arrest me, but the scripture must be fulfilled." And they all left him and ran away. And following him was a certain young man wearing only a thin sheet over his naked body. And the young men grabbed him, but he fled from them with nothing on, having left the sheet behind. Well, that's tonight's episode. Now, I've never been to Jerusalem, so to set the scene, I'm relying on a description written by a fellow priest called Peter Sills. I knew him years ago when I was working as vicar of St Mark's, Wimbledon, in the Merton Deanery. And I guess he must be retired now like me and writing. This is how he sets the scene for us, writing back in 2006. The walk from the upper room to the Garden of Gethsemane takes you first through the Jewish quarter of the Old City, then down a steep hillside across the brook Kidron and into the garden, which is on the lower slopes of the Mount of Olives. The Garden of Gethsemane is an olive grove, and an imposing church, the Church of All Nations, has been built there. Inside the church, the focal point is a large rock, the Rock of the Agony, now surrounded by a low railing, which is hallowed as the place where Jesus threw himself to the ground and prayed, "Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. Take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours." In the evening, away from the crowds, it is a very moving place, and kneeling in prayer around the rock brings home the full anguish that Jesus felt at the onset of his passion. So, that's how he sets the scene for us, and many thanks to Peter Sills for it. Let's contemplate the events as they unfold. First, they arrive in the olive grove, and Jesus says, "Sit here while I pray." Then, with Peter, James and John, his closest companions, he opens his heart and expresses exactly what his feelings are. Mark puts it like this: "And he started being overwhelmed and deeply troubled. And he said to them, 'My soul is bound in deadly sorrow. Stay here and keep awake.'" We need to let the full weight of Mark's description communicate with us. He uses words that speak of Jesus being overwhelmed and deeply troubled. We can begin to imagine how the horror of what was likely to happen was dawning on him now, and the dreadful apprehension he must have been feeling. For up to now, the Jesus we meet in this, the first of the Gospels to have been written, had been the Jesus in control. We do not expect him to be overwhelmed and deeply troubled. Normally, it's been Jesus who has caused others to be astonished and troubled, even angered. But now, in the olive grove, it's suddenly turned right around. Reality has dawned on him, and he sees clearly now what he must endure. And he is asking the Father if there is not some alternative that might be less horrific, less agonizing. Here we see the cost laid on this one person, fully human, the total price of our reconciliation with God. For Jesus, his union with the Father meant everything. It was meat and drink to him to be one with the Father. An agreement between the two was his lifeblood and his total purpose. But not at this moment, not at this stressful hour. He knew the Father meant him to go through with it, but knowing as he now did that the verbal abuse, the pain of torture at the hands of callous soldiers, and the prospect of possibly hanging in the open air on a cross, dying of exposure, that now faced him as a stark reality. The last temptation was the worst. Was it possible that this last temptation would succeed, and that his will would not be the same as the Father's? What does he say? He says, "Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. Take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours." The Son asks the Father for a safety net. And there is one, but not this one. So their unity prevails, and he says, "Yet not my will, but yours." This is in stark contrast with the disciples, who, under the influence of the wine at the Passover meal, no doubt, they succumb to their drowsy state and nod off. Of course, they wanted to stay awake. Jesus had specifically asked them to, but they just couldn't. Mark shows us the divine strength of Jesus right next to the human weakness of his disciples. Jesus says it right out loud. And they remembered it for the rest of their lives. Yes, the spirit is ready enough, but how weak is the flesh, is the way I translated it. Older Bibles more familiarly give it like the proverb it became. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. It became a proverb because we all know it's true. The human body, which each of us inhabits, often seems to have a mind of its own. St. Paul knew this, and before Mark ever put pen to manuscript, had himself written in Romans chapter 7, "For I can't put into practice good things that I want to do, but evil that I don't want, that I do." Nowadays, we are pretty sure that the vast majority of the workings of our minds are invisible to us. There are drives and initiatives going on in the depths that only become visible to our consciousness in the very last stages of their development. Becoming an adult enables us to acknowledge and give names to these hidden forces within ourselves, and even to make use of them in a creative and socially responsible way. The better we do this, the more successful we become as humans. We're all in the same boat, so we mustn't sit there all smug and say that the disciples are failures because they fell asleep. We all fall asleep on the job all the time. Jesus came to bear our weaknesses and to offer himself up for us. Didn't he just say, "You sit here and I'll go over there and do the praying"? He does it for us. It is only by us recognizing ourselves as the ones that need help, that need helping and saving, that the help and salvation he is offering to us can come to us. It is by allowing Jesus to pray in us, allowing ourselves to be aligned with God's self, that the flesh and the spirit can move and work together, and Jesus can do his work in us and through us. In the next couple of days, the story will move to its final and brutal climax and its glorious conclusion. My talks this week have been about the suffering of a man who is the icon of the invisible God, anointed, remembered, and now betrayed. When I wrote this talk, I had hoped that you would make it to the Last Supper on Maundy Thursday and to the drama on Good Friday. I had hoped that you would go shopping for your lamb to roast on Saturday and spend the last day of Lent quietly. I had hoped that then you would have been able to come early or come later on the glorious Easter morning and celebrate together how love has come again and life has come again. But sadly, we will more likely have to come together as a virtual family to do these things. It's a reminder to us all that there is no resurrection unless there has first been a death. There is no avoiding it. The threat that Jesus was proving to be to those in authority led them to make special arrangements for his arrest. Normal police procedures were set aside. This was not a couple of cops coming to put their hands on the shoulder of a troublemaker. Here comes Judas now with a great crowd carrying sharp swords and brandishing hefty cudgels. In our own times, we have seen authoritarian states in Eastern Europe and in China and other places much closer to home, even in our own country, using over-the-top strong-arm tactics, intimidating and attacking small groups of dissidents. This is not the police coming to arrest a nuisance. This is the arrest of someone they see as an enemy of the state, an enemy of those in authority and power. Amazingly, it appears to be Judas who is giving the orders. "The one I kiss is him. Arrest him and take him into custody." Jesus then challenges those who have laid their hands on him. "Did you have to come out with swords and cudgels to arrest me like some robber? I was with you in the temple every day teaching, and you didn't arrest me." No, Jesus was far too popular for that to have been remotely possible. That's why they needed to know where he would be, in a place where he might be picked up alone in the dead of night. Jesus had, of course, spoken critically about people who prefer to do their nefarious deeds clandestinely. He spoke about those who prefer the darkness to the light because they are quite clear in themselves that their deeds are evil. The die is cast. The darkness is here. The evil surrounds him. He is betrayed, and not just by a peck on the cheek. Mark says it's a big kiss, a friendly kiss, a brotherly kiss. You see how evil hides behind a mask. Here, betrayal hides behind the mask of intimate friendship. Hate hides behind love. Such a lot here to think about. Links exist between this story and our own experience. Maybe, as in your mind, you travelled to that olive grove with the disciples and Jesus, you too can feel the emotion changing as he prays on that rock, as he awakens his disciples, and as Judas arrives with the armed band. Be there. What does it feel like? How would you have reacted? He did it all for you. Amen.